So I'm going to show you a little project I'm working on at the moment, and it's a fairly simple project, but I've spent a fair bit of time researching it. And what it is, it's a set of motors set on a set of tilts on a bar, and what that bar is going to do is it's going to sit on my plane and it's going to give me some vertical lift while I try and fly. I guess like a set of training wheels for those of us that can't fly fixed wing. And I've got a fixed wing plane. I've flown it about 3 or 4 times, gone about 6 seconds, and we've nosedived. And yeah, well, I just need something to help me. Anyway, what I've come up with, I've done a fair bit of reading in regards to the aero software for these KK boards, and I've also had a look at the VTOL, or vertical takeoff and land software for these, and it all seems, I don't know, pretty complicated, and it all seems pretty well much, you know, everyone's own opinion. There's no real detail of what to do. So I guess I've taken it all, I've had a bit of a play and a bit of a think about it, and I've come up with something that looks horrid but is fairly simple. So let's just run through the gear. What we've got a power distribution board here. We've got a servo and a motor which simulates the servo and motor on a plane. We've got a KK board which does a bit of smarts for us. We've got our 8-channel FreeSky receiver. We've got 2 little motors mounted on some swivels, and they are hard mounted on a pole, and that's just held in a little vise there. So I'm going to run through and show you the components. I'm going to run through and show you the wiring. I'm going to run through and show you the transmitter settings, and then I'm going to show you how it all works. So let's get to the first part of what the basics is. You've got your motor, your ESC for your plane, and all your wiring for your ESC and your elevator and rudder, and so your 4 channels basically plug straight into your receiver, and then you go off flying. So what I'm doing is I'm adding this flight bar with 2 motors and 2 servos. Now what I want them to do is I want them to spin to take some lift. I want to be able to adjust them forward, and basically I want to be able to adjust the throttle on them. So they don't tilt either way. There's no revs this way to give you stability. It's just pure up and down throttle and forward and tilt back. Now later on I'm going to change that. What I eventually want to do is have these tilt 90 degrees so they become as the same motor on the plane. So I've got 3 motors driving it, so virtually a vertical takeoff and land. But that's the stage 2. So let's have a look at our wiring here. We've got the wiring from our motor, from our ESC straight onto our motor 1 connection on the board. We've got the 4 channels, which is just your rudder, motor, and pitch and roll. So your elevator, aileron, rudder, throttle. So they're your 4 for your aeroplane. So those 4 are straight on the 4 for your Hobby King KK board. What I've done here, and I've made these up, these are little splitters. So all they are is just 2 of the females and 1 male. Pair them out and join the wires together so you can plug that into something and have 2 out, like a Y connector if you like. So I've made up a few of them. I've put a Y connector in here to channel 6, and I've got each of these on a separate channel. Now what these do, this channel 6 is the ESC. So there's 2 ESCs here, 2 10 amp ESCs to drive the motors. So one channel is going to drive your throttle, the other channel 7 and 8 is to each servo, and what they're going to do is they're going to drive each way. And there's a little bit of mixing in the radio, but it's pretty straightforward, pretty simple. But basically that's the wiring for the plane and the training wheels. This here is just basically both your ESCs joined together, and they both go into a 2-into-1 here. So you're powering your power distribution board, you're powering both those ESCs individually. So power here to the board and your ESC, and power to these ESCs individually. Okay, so that's basically how it is. The KK board is just set up as a quadcopter or bicopter, doesn't really matter. All I'm doing is using that to arm and disarm the main part of the copter. So in the future, these here will be split off. There's only two that I need to split, which is for arming and disarming. So that's your throttle and your rudder. So throttle and rudder will be wide to the aeroplane and wide to this. So I hope that makes sense. So all four from the aeroplane to here, this will split off down to here, so I can arm this, so I can turn that on and off via that. And of course these are all independent here. Sounds pretty complicated, but pretty basic. So I've showed you the why. These are from Hobby King, and these are basically a servo motor tilt adjustment, and they're for a tricopter tail boom arrangement. Pretty straightforward. There's a shaft that's keyed into that part. Your servo sits there. Your servo, as you can see there, has one of these screwed onto it and sits on the top there. This guy here is pushed keyed into there. That sits on there, and that just turns, and you can see the arrangement there, and that's all it is.